this fight against an overreaching federal government. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator DeMint.
There's so many people to thank, but folks, mostly why I'm here is just to help you understand the power is not in the hands of the folks in Washington, it's in your hands, and I want to talk about that today. Proud to be on the team here with the Speaker. You've heard from our new congressional delegation. Folks, the leadership, the commitment, the courage that you elected in 2010 and sent reinforcement to Congress, it was really exciting. And you've heard from them, and they're already leaders. This idea you have to be there for years has been proven untrue by, I think, the brightest and strongest Republican delegation or South Carolina delegation we've ever had. And they've joined Joe Wilson. They're making a difference. And obviously, I appreciate my colleague, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey and I, we work well together on a lot of issues. Sometimes he's the bad cop, sometimes I'm the bad cop. But we double team him a lot on a lot of issues, whether it's the Labor Relations Board or getting the port dredged. We're out there working. We're going to get the things done, and I appreciate all of my South Carolina delegation colleagues. But you sent them there, so I'm here to thank you for it. You've heard probably all the issues from the other candidates, but we are in a real fight, and we have been the last couple of years. And you know, I was told at one point that I couldn't change the Senate. And I took that as a challenge. You know, when I got to Washington, I went with your values, I believed, and believed that Republicans were there to push a limited government, less taxes, more personal freedom. And I saw just about everyone in Washington, including a lot of Republicans, who thought they were there just to take home the bacon. Just the self-serving parochial interests, drain the federal treasury, get buildings, roads, and bridges named after yourself. And that seemed to be the whole culture in Washington. To heck with America. And that's how we ended up with $14 trillion in debt. Federal money was free money. Let's just take it back to the states. And now we're in a mess. And we had to change it. After the 2006 elections, I couldn't get my Senate Republican colleagues to change anything, even though we just lost the majority in the House and the Senate. After 2008, we got blown away again, and Obama was elected. And they still wouldn't change things. But the people all across the country started standing up. There was an American awakening that got behind people who were willing to stand up and fight in Washington. I did some things that hadn't been done before in the Senate, and I was reminded by our leadership that that was not the way things were done. I don't know of any other senator who ever endorsed an opponent of a sitting Republican colleague. But Arlen Specter had sold us out on so many votes, and he was one of those appropriators just there to take home the bacon. When I endorsed Pat Toomey, you know, I felt the wrath of my whole party and the whole Washington establishment. And then our party went down and endorsed Governor Charlie Crist because he had money and he was very popular. But he did not share our principles.
That's right.
Marco Rubio did. And then in Kentucky, even though our leadership was behind someone else, Rand Paul. And all across the country, I had this little website called Senate Conservatives Fund. I didn't know how much difference it could make, but it raised $9 million, not because of me, But because when you put candidates on there like Pat Toomey and Marco Rubio and Rand Paul and Mike Lee and Ron Johnson, it answers a question that I hear all over the country. People are saying, what can I do? What they did is the average contribution on that website was $45. And many times I'd get a check for $20 and they would say, as soon as my next paycheck comes, I'll send you another $20. And we raised over $9 million. And now I'm serving with Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Pat Toomey. I don't have to get up every morning thinking I have to stop every bad bill coming through the Senate. Because Rand Paul looked at me and he said, Jim, my goal is to make you look like a moderate. And I think he might do it. And Pat Toomey's the one who's got a budget that balances within 10 years. Mike Lee from Utah, who replaced a Republican colleague, Bob Bennett, has presented the balanced budget amendment that won't allow them to raise taxes to balance the budget unless they can get 2/3 of the House and the Senate. Yeah. So we've got some great new leadership, and I can go back to those folks who pointed at me and say, we can change the Senate. That's we can change the House. Yeah. We can change Washington, and we can save our country. Yeah. Folks, we lost our way as a party in Washington. I don't know that we ever have here. But when I endorsed Marco Rubio after endorsing Pat Toomey, we were in a Republican conference, all the Republicans sitting around, and our leadership just got up and said, DeMint, you don't understand. This place is about numbers, not principle. You know, and I answered in the press when they threw that back in my face. I said, I'd rather have 30 Marco Rubios than 60 Arlen Specters. I've survived, and those of you who know me, I don't have a great personal power or presence about me. What has happened is I've got millions of Americans who've got my back. It starts right here in South Carolina. What they normally do to you in Washington when you don't do what they say in your party is they just quietly marginalize you and you're never heard from again. But the reason they were afraid to go after me is because every time they did, and I made it public, the emails, the phone calls, the radio talk shows, the blogs, the Fox News, they heard from America. And that's the way it's got to stay. They're not going to see the light in Washington, but they will feel the heat. Part about being in Washington over the last 2 years was to see the power pulled out of the hands of politicians and put back in the hands of the American people. As people stood up all over the country, they spoke out. They went to rallies and the tea parties, and they said no more. And in 2010, in our elections, we did change things. And we've turned the corner in Washington. We still have a long way to go to get home. But 2012 may be our last chance to get it right. We can't kick the can down the road any further. We can't add the trillions of dollars of debt that this president has planned. We can't continue to take over one industry after another and take away individual rights and freedom and expect our country to work. 2012 is when we have to lay it all on the line, when we have to go to the mat. And folks, I need to explain something to you that you already understand. Is they're saying, compromise with the Democrats, work with them, okay? I know a lot about compromise. I'm married. I've got children. I know a lot about giving in. But folks, when you're working with someone who has the opposite goals from you, I mean, this is like a coach in the Super Bowl saying, listen, guys, be nice. Go out and work with the other team. Compromise with them. I mean, you can do that if you share goals with people. But folks, the Democrats cannot work with us on our goals. Their whole party platform is based on more government solutions, more government investments, more government spending. If we passed a balanced budget amendment in Washington, the Democrat Party would be out of business. They can't promise anything. in 2012 is no compromise. We have to beat the guys who are going in the wrong direction. It starts right now. And if you want to know about the candidates for president and who to support, my first advice would be wait, watch, and listen. Watch what they do about the debt ceiling. Do they stand on the sidelines or say no more? We are not going to pass an increase in our debt ceiling, particularly unless we pass a balanced budget amendment. Folks, we never have more leverage than we do right now. I hear, wait till we have a Republican president. Wait till we get more. But the president doesn't have to sign a balanced budget amendment. It's passed by the House and the Senate. And we had a resolution to pass a balanced budget amendment just a couple of months ago. We got 10 Democrats. What would happen if no debt ceiling could pass in July or August or September? And if we sent a letter to the president signed by 41 Republican senators, we have 47, we should be able to get 41. And so this debt ceiling will not pass until we pass a balanced budget amendment in the House and the Senate. What would happen? We could win that debate. If the president starts closing down the national parks and cutting services, all because he will not agree to a balanced budget amendment, we can win that argument. And we will. But I know I've taken too long and you've been sitting here a long time, but all over the country I hear what I heard when I walked in today is thanks for fighting, we're praying for you, what can I do? What you can do is what you've been doing here and making an example for the whole nation. The power's in your hands, our future's in your hands, freedom itself is in the hands of the people, not the people who are speaking to you today, but the ones who are sitting next to you. And I appreciate you being here because you're the ones that have my back. You're the ones that give courage to every new congressman who is holding the line now so that he doesn't have to answer to the leadership, he answers to you, and when he does the right thing. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. But folks, this is when we put it on the line. This is when we stand up and fight. 2012 has to have more energy, more people coming out than we've ever had before. No compromise. Let's take back our country. Thank you.